Oral history recorded of this gentleman. And what is your name, please?
Ander Hutcheson.
Okay, and where are you from, Ander?
Born in Georgia. We moved to Mims, Florida, when I was 3 years old,
Okay.
1931.
Okay. And who were your parents?
Elmina and Ebenezer Hutcheson.
Oh. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
9.
9. Can you name them all?
Pardon?
Can you name them all?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want the names of all of them?
Yep.
Well, the first one was Hillard, Lizzie, Melvin, Allen, Wesley, Tilda, Archie, Lillian, and me. Did I forget any?
Did they all live in the Mims area?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many are still presently alive?
Me.
That's all that's left. God bless
I'm
you.
the last one.
And how old are you?
I'm only 80.
Only 80. And so when were you born? What's your birth date?
October 12th, Columbus Day, 1928.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. You grew up in the Mims area. Where did you go to school?
Mims Elementary.
And who was your teacher?
Mrs. Eva Taylor and Lillian Harper and Florence Blair.
Tell us something about what it was like going to school in the 30s in the Mims area. Who were some of your roommates or buddies that you went to school with? And did you walk to school?
Yes, ma'am. We walked to school, and I lived about 1.5 miles from school. Lived right on US 1. And during the Depression, we had a lot of people stopping in at the back door asking for food. My mother usually had something she'd give them, you know, a biscuit or something. And I had the Wimberleys. We had a Wimberley family, a foster family. We had the Sharps. Most of the Sharps were older than me. They're all gone but one now.
How about the Roberts?
The
family?
Roberts, they lived close to the school, almost across the highway from the school. And they had P.W. Roberts, he's still out there, and had Lillian and the other two, I can't think of their names right now.
Mabel?
Mabel, and Philip was the old man. I don't know the mother's name or first name. My sister used to go and spend some time with, her name was Lillian, and she used to go spend some time with Lillian after school. And Mr. Roberts would give them candy, you know, he was real nice to them.
What did you do for entertainment as a young boy?
Well, we lived in a big 2-story house just before you get into Mims, and it's been gone a long time ago, and there were some large oak trees. We were in a 5-acre grove, and there were some large oak trees close to the house, And I used to like to climb these trees and build swings in them, and I dug a lot of holes, made caves, you know, and hiding places. And my dad showed me how to make a bird trap, and I was about 9 or 10, I guess. I set the bird trap and caught a trap full of quail one day. And a friend of mine, hand me that water, Slam. A friend of mine and me used to hunt birds and squirrels. He usually had a BB gun. And we would hunt rabbits at night. And we'd go fishing. And these about the things that we done. Now finally one day I had saved up 50 cents and nickel and dime, and I was walking home from school and I run into this homeless person pushing a bicycle, and he wanted to sell it. He said he'd take 50 cents for it, so when he come by my house, I gave him the 50 cents. I fixed the bicycle up. That was my first bicycle. I had a lot of fun with it.
What did you ever ride the train into Titusville?
No, never did. But I used to watch for it, and I'd hear it coming. I'd go out and check on it when I heard it coming, you know, and it made a lot of noise. Old steam engine, Old Buck, we called it, Old Buck. They parked it at Titusville at night, and then in the morning they crank it up and they go to New Smyrna with it. And whatever they had to bring back, they'd load it up and bring it back that afternoon.
They used to have a stop in Mims on right on 46.
Yeah, there was a depot there on 46. There was a train depot, and there were side tracks. We had, at the time, we had 3 packing houses in Mims.
What were they? Do you remember the names?
The Mims Citrus Exchange was one at the north end, and then the Blue Goose next to 46, and then the Trigo was the next one right next to that. There were side tracks, and the train would leave empty cars there during the winter and the fruit season. They'd leave empty cars, and they used to pack the fruit in wood cartons, and they nail the top of them. They'd nail a board across the top, and it's about enough for a man to handle, you know, that box. And would hand truck them out up the ramp into the box cars, and there's a man in the box car that would stack them properly in the box car and nail slats on them to keep them from moving around. Then they put ice, they had ice bunkers in the end of the cars, and they put ice in there. And New Smyrna used to be one of the main stations for icing up the boxcar. And later on, I used to, as a teenager, I drove a semi and I hauled ice to New Smyrna from Daytona. I picked it up at the ice plant and hauled it to New Smyrna to help supplement what they made there, so they have enough to do the job.
Was it how did you keep it from melting?
You didn't. You didn't want to leave it on that truck too long. It would keep a good while, you know. It would keep several hours pretty well on it, and it weighed more. It was overweight, you know, and so it weighed enough to allow for a lot of melting.
Back then, the packing houses used to wrap their citrus
Yeah.
in tissue papers.
Well, they had a thin paper, like, if a thin paper, it was a good paper. It was stronger than a newspaper. It was in squares, and these packers, usually women, mostly women, they were real fast at that, you know. They'd throw that orange in that paper and wrap it up, stick it in there, and depend on how many, the size depend on how many you put in a box, and you had to pack them just right, you know, had to get the right pattern in there to get the right amount of fruit in there and look good when you got through with it.
Who were the big citrus growers in the area during that time?
The old man, the original parish here.
J.J. Parrish.
J.J. Parrish, he was the first one. There's a third one now. There was J.J. Jr., he was a lawyer. And then now this one, there's one left they call J.J. Third. The first one, there's a man, a retired fire chief from New York City, came here and started Nevins Fruit Company. He originated.
I think that was Mr. Terwilliger.
Who?
Terwilliger? Terwilliger.
Well, that name is familiar. You probably know that more than I do. I remember the Terwilliger camp.
And where was that located?
That was on J.J. Road in LaGrange, between LaGrange and Mims.
It was back on the railroad.
Well, the packing house was on the river then.
Yeah.
And they had a problem with water, they had to have a lot of water, and they had a problem getting enough water without salt on the river, you know. They had it on the river because the main railroad run along the river there, and they built it on the river. Well, they owned a lot of property, and back west of there, they had the Terwilliger place, was a big two-story house that's down there behind the college now, you know.
Yep.
They're gonna keep it. That's a good old house.
Yeah, that belonged to L.C. Oliver at one time.
Yeah.
He built it. Mm-hmm.
And so they decided to run water from there down to the packing house, and they had pumps up at the Oliver house. They had water pumps, and they run a water line down about 600 feet behind the grove and dug a big pit, big as this room here, and filled it up with rock. And they pumped water into there. And I was working at the packing house. I was about 14, I guess, and they had me go down there and watch it and make sure that the water table stayed up and let them know if there's any problem. And then they pumped it from there. They had a water line. They pumped it from there down to the packing house. That's the way they got their fresh water.
Interesting. To wash the fruit in? That's what they used to wash the fruit in?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Use a lot of water.
Interesting.
They had two sections of packing house there, like two packing houses actually, and they used a lot of water, and they fill these pits up with water, you know, to float the fruit in, and then they have ranchers to ranch it off, you know, and it all goes to waste. They dump it all out at the end of the shift. Anyway, That's about the operation at the packing house.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the Turpentine area? There was a camp out off of 46. Tell me something about that.
Yeah, that was sometime in the 30s, about maybe the mid-30s. Do you know when the dates were? I don't remember.
No. It was in the 30s, though.
Yeah, it was in the 30s. My uncle was a carpenter, and he came down here from Georgia. My mother's brother,
What was his name?
Warren Langford.
Warren
Langford. He built all these houses out back there for the help, you know.
Out on 46 at the Turpentine
Right.
site? Okay.
Yeah, he built all these houses, and they had a lot of help. They had a lot of laborers, you know, mostly black, and Mr. Russian brought his family here, and OC is still out there. Have you talked to OC Russian?
No, I haven't.
Well, if you get a chance, talk to him.
Okay.
He come here way after I did, but he can tell you some things too, especially about Turpentine. His dad was one of the head people. He rode the woods on a horse all the time, carried a pistol. And these fellows out there, they were on the woods and chipped these pine trees and put cups on them to get the tar from them, you know. And they built this steel, turpentine steel up there across from P.W. Roberts' house.
On US 1
Yeah,
in Mims?
where P.W. Roberts lives now. Across from there was the turpentine steel.
About where the post office is.
Yeah, on
Today.
Adjoining property. to the
Adjoining
post
property.
office, just south of the post office property.
Yeah, there's a concrete place there or something now. There's a
Well-
business there.
Well, there's
Next-
a business there. There's a business there behind the post office area back in there. But there used to be a ready-mix place across in front of the post office there, over where that big building is over there now. That used to be a ready-mix place.
Okay.
It belonged to the Kellys and Lucas.
Okay. That's where the turpentine processing plant was, or that's where a collection point was? Where was the collection point? It used to be out off of 46 was the collection point.
The what?
The collection point,
Collection
where they
point?
used to bring the barrels of syrup in, and then they processed it at US 1. Is that what they did?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened to Kelly's? Do you know anything about the Kelly at all, the family, or do you remember anything?
Not very much. I never did learn much about them, and, until just, far as I know, until fairly recently. A family still lived there in Mims. They lived just north of where Illinois Fruit Company was. The street just north of there, they lived in one of those houses down there, 2 or 3 houses down. But I don't know where they are now. I don't know anything about them.
Do you remember what happened to Kelly's Turpentine Company that was on US 1? Did it burn down?
No, I don't recall anything. I can't tell you anything about that.
Okay. What were some of the other? Do you remember anything about Southmere that was out on 46?
I know what I've heard from the old timers. I used to hear some things about it, and there was still a house out there. Some family. I had a friend whose family lived in this house out there, and some Indians lived in it during the time that we had the Turpentine count. Some Indians lived in that house. And across from the house, it was an established community, you know, it was a town, and across from this house was a post office. They had a post office there. And my friend and me used to ramble through the woods, and out in the woods in the surrounding area, we found several places where there was foundations, you know, concrete foundations where there had been buildings there. But it didn't get off the ground. Apparently it was established back during the boom area, you know.
In the 20s.
And then in the 20s, and then it just disintegrated, you know. This was a real good house, and it was left there because it was so good, I guess.
Where approximately where was it located? Near 6 Mile Creek on the south side, or?
It was about a mile west of Hatbill Road.
Okay, west of Hatbill Road. Okay, is there anything there now, any remains that is visible remains of Southmere?
The only thing you might look for if you go by there is look on the south side of the road and see if you can see any of that house left there. Okay. That would be the only thing that I know, because that's the only thing that I know that was visible. But it might be all gone now. And one of these houses, there's a man in Mims. His name was B.I. Riker. You heard about him?
Yes.
He went out there and tore down one of these houses and brought it to Mims and built him a house.
Oh, used the lumber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably Hart pine, so very good lumber
Probably
to salvage.
Was, yeah.
Yeah, very good. Do you remember anything about when Baxter Point started in the 30s, about 1936? Do you remember hearing anything about Baxter Point?
Yeah, I've heard about it.
Okay.
I don't bring it up in my computer right now, but I've heard about it.
Okay.
Baxter Point.
Yeah. How about Hatbill? Do you remember the camp that used to be out there called Hatbill?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a hunt camp. How about? Do you remember any of the hunt camps in the area where people would go hunting for ducks and all kinds of things? Wasn't there a place called Big Camp?
We used to go hunting, but no, I wasn't familiar with the camps much. I know about Hatbill. I know that there's a fellow by the name of, we called him Preacher Kaiser. He had some cow pens out there and some little livable buildings, you know, some little buildings that could be lived in temporary, and places, and then we'd go on out past there, wind around the road and go on out past as far as we could go, you know, and stop at the river and fish and go camping there sometime.
During the 30s, what was living through the Depression like around here?
Well, I didn't know it was all that bad, really, because I didn't know any better, you know. But I know that some of my relatives, we had a big house, and some of them would come here from Georgia and stay and work for a while, and they made $1 a day, and they would save up money and go back to Georgia. And people used to come by the house, walking the road, and they'd come to the house and asking for something to eat, and Mama would give them something. And there's the better off people would come by, and I would pick them some oranges and give them to them. They'd give me a quarter, you know, or a nickel or a dime. And we had back then, somebody had cows back then, and there was a lot of little dairies all over the place, little dairies.
I think the Osbornes had one on Dairy Road.
Yeah. Well, that Dairy Road, I was instrumental in naming that road. I bought my first 10 acres out there in '52.
And where was it located?
You're coming from Winn-Dixie Shopping Center.
Mm-hmm.
That first house on the left there.
Heading east?
Pardon?
Heading east on Dairy Road?
Yeah, coming east on Dairy Road. As soon as you leave the Winn-Dixie property, across the street there on the corner, I bought that 10 acres with that little house there on the corner. And that was a dirt road back then. That was in '52.
So that was where did the Osmonds still have their dairy then?
Mm-mm.
That was long gone?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Osmond, I don't remember them ever having that dairy there.
Okay.
That was owned by Horace Sharp. Next to the youngest of the Horace of Sharp people. And before that, it was Wise. It was Wise Dairy. Mm-hmm. But Osmond, they may have owned it sometime. I don't know.
Probably in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you ever remember anything about Indian Mound Station? The Indian Mound that was out there off of
yeah.
Parish Road?
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell me something about that. The
Well,
Indian Mound that was out there.
It's still there. I've walked over it many a time. There's signs where people have dug in it, you know, but may not have dug far enough to find anything. And I think it's protected. I'm not sure, but I believe it's protected. It's probably owned by an individual.
But how about in the old days? It wasn't protected back in the 40s and 50s.
No.
Did people go over there and look around or search around or try to find artifacts or anything like that back in those early days?
Yeah, you can see signs where people had dug in, probably dug with a shovel, you know. Mm-hmm. And it's a pretty good sized place, indentation in the top of it where somebody has dug. But don't look like any machinery's ever been into it.
No.
We used to have a buddy, Rudolph Spear. Him and me used to spend some time over there, you know, and he'd been dead several years, but we used to go across the bay. There was a crossing where there used to be an old tram road across the bay that went across.
Now, when you say the bay, what are you referring to?
There's a natural low place, a drain that runs north and south. It comes from across Highway 46, and it comes south, and it comes just east, just west of the two schools on Dairy Road out there. is a low area,
Okay.
and it goes on south and comes right on along. It runs into along Singleton, and Singleton ends right there at 405. That low area comes right on across there, and even goes across Singleton. Now I don't know if the drain goes any further. I've never noticed there's anything under the road where it drains any further, but it's a natural low place where water runs, when we get a lot of rain.
And that's where the tram road was?
Pardon?
That's where the tram road was? The
Well,
old tram road?
Now, that was in Mims. Just about where Parker Avenue is there. Right in that area.
That's where it came through?
If you go head west and go off the end of Parker and head down to the bay there and look for it, you find it. Find a place where it was filled in and some kind of rail device used to go across there they went across there and on over to Salt Lake Landing.
That's right. It was called the old Pace's Landing Road, and it was the wooden rail tram that came from Salt Lake all the way over to the Indian River at Pace's Landing. Yeah.
You're probably right.
Yeah. Do you, in the 1940s, what was it like here in the 1940s? Were a lot of the men away to war? Do you remember a lot of the men being away to war? And what was going on in town about then, in early 1940s?
Things were kind of booming. Things were pretty good. After Roosevelt became president, I was born on the Hoover. And Roosevelt became president. It took a while, but things started to get better, And then, of course, what really brought us back was the war. When the war started, we had to build war materials for ourselves and everybody else too. We spent a lot of money, and that put a lot of people to work. People was making money then.
Do you remember the Brevard Lumber Company and the sawmill?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Well, that started, Henry Goethe came down from up in North Florida someplace and moved into a rancho, and on the west side of the railroad. He bought property there and built a sawmill. Of course, there was plenty of timber in that immediate area there, And he started cutting that timber and sawing it, and he become well off. And then later on, he saw an opportunity to move his facilities to LaGrange, where it is now, And he moved all his equipment up there. He had a few houses built up there for his help, and then he put his operation in there, and he built that nice building out front there, a hardware facility, and he just continued to do well. We had one bank at the time, that was Citizens Bank. It was established right after all the banks went bust. Mr. Ashcraft come here, and he had some money, and he opened that bank. And Mr. Goethe was always the director at the bank. And then later on, of course, they moved the bank. They built the new bank down there where southeast, I guess it is now, on the river. And Mr. Goethe was a wealthy man, and he never had any family. Never had any family. He had two nephews, and he left his wealth to one of his nephews, and he's still living. I see him in the restaurant once in a while.
That's Larry.
Pardon?
I think his name is Larry. Larry.
Well, Larry is the younger one.
Oh, okay.
He's a grandnephew. He's the one that manages the store out there. Very nice fellow. He's done a bang-up job managing that business. His daddy is the one that owns everything. Mr. Goethe owned a lot of property around about, and Larry has managed that business, and he's done a real good job.
It's been in business for a long time.
Pardon?
It's been in business for a long time.
Oh yeah, since way back in, I guess maybe at the end of the 40s, somewhere about there.
Yeah, because they really made their business during the war with all the lumber that was needed. How about what was Mims like in the late 1940s? What was Mims like back then? Was that all citrus with the packing house, Nevin's packing house? Tell me something about Mims back then.
Late 40s?
Yeah.
Well, that was late 40s. The main industries here was citrus and fishing. People fishing made good money.
Who are some of the commercial fishermen?
Elmer Nobles, and J.W. Strickland, Knox, and the I see them, but I can't think of them.
That's okay. So fishing was a big industry here back in the 40s.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Very big. And you can buy fish for 19 cents a pound.
Wow. Wow. So citrus and fishing were the two main industries here, which now hardly exists anymore. And a lot of the groves are disappearing.
Right.
Where were do you remember where some of the pickers had camps up there off of Wiley Road? Do you remember some of the picking camps?
That was Twilliger Camp.
That was Twilliger Camp
Yeah,
off of Wiley Road?
Off
Okay.
of Wiley Road. Now it belongs to one of the contractors, and they're back in there. The Bevels used to live back there.
Oh,
That was Bevel's estate back there. They used to live back there. Then the packing house took it over. Davins, and they kept their equipment. Some of their people back there.
Okay.
And well, you keep on reminding.
What was the relationship between the black community and the white community in Mims in the late 1940s?
Well, there was a distinct separation, and people didn't express too much what they thought, but they knew what they thought, you know. And it's common knowledge, you know, the separation between the blacks and whites since slavery. But things are different nowadays. We've come a long ways, and thankfully we have come a long ways, and things have got better.
What happened, you were alive during the, what was going on with the Moores, Harriet and Harry T.Moore in the late 1940s, and then they were, their place was bombed Christmas night, 1951. Do you remember anything? What was it like back then? Can you describe that? What happened? What you remember happening?
Yeah. I can tell you what I know. I was home, I was in the Marines, and I was home on a Christmas vacation. But before I tell you that, I knew the Moores about all my life, you know. I just knew them, and that's all. I wasn't close to them. But they were, I used to see them all the time, and I would see them in their car, the man and the wife in the front seat and two daughters in the back seat. And I worked, as a teenager, I worked at a service station in Mims, and he would stop and buy gas from.
Was that the Texaco station?
Gulf.
Gulf. And who owned that?
Well, my nephew owned it at the time.
What was his name?
Donnie
Oh,
Hutcheson.
okay. Donnie Hutcheson owned the Gulf station, and where was that located?
Gulf station. That was located there. Well, it's kind of hard.
Was it on US 1?
Yeah, it was on US 1.
Okay. Near the railroad, or near?
No.
Near Buffalo?
Well, it was next to the old Taylor garage.
Oh, okay. I know.
Old
Okay.
Taylor garage.
Okay. Near Main Street.
Also, it belonged to Clary Taylor.
Okay.
Station.
All right.
And I also worked there for Clary Taylor when he
Okay.
had it belonged to him.
Okay.
And the Moores used to come stop in there and buy gas. And this is all I know about him.
Okay.
And I knew that he was a school teacher, and he was a principal. I just knew that from word to mouth, you know, hearsay. But that's all I knew about him. And then, when I came home on leave in Christmas of '51 for 2 weeks, I was headed, on the next morning, I was headed back to Camp Lejeune. And when I come along US 1, I saw all of these cars over there. All these cars over in that area.
Now this was Christmas Day, or the day
Let's
after
see.
Christmas? Do you
Well, you know, I don't even recall now.
Okay.
But maybe it was Christmas Day. I don't
Okay.
know.
Was it after the bombing?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
okay, the
that-
bombing was Christmas night.
Night. Okay.
Yeah, so it must have been
Well,
the following.
it was the next morning. It was
Okay.
the next morning. So I pulled in there where I could talk to somebody and to find out what was happening, you know. And they told me that somebody blew up the Moore's house. Well, I went on up the road, and a few days later, my CO called me up and told me where to go to, and it was the FBI. They wanted to ask me a whole lot of questions. And that's all I know about it, but besides what I read in the paper.
Okay, what do you remember that Christmas night? What was it, cold or foggy, or what was it like Christmas night? Was it?
I don't remember.
Do you remember? Was it foggy, or do you remember?
I
You
don't remember.
Okay.
I don't have any idea.
Okay. Do you remember? Did anybody say who might have done it or anything like that? Did it?
Oh, people had ideas, you know.
Yeah.
People had thoughts, and I'm not going to repeat what people thought about, you know.
Yeah.
But have you read the stories about it? Have you read the
In the
paper
newspaper,
about it?
yes, uh-huh.
Well, it sounds like to me that this sheriff over in the center part of the state had something to do with it.
Sheriff McCall.
Yeah, Sheriff McCall. And that, what I've read sounds good enough for me, you know. Everybody's dead now, and
Yeah.
I thought I had my thoughts too. I tried to analyze it and arrive at some kind of possibility of what might have taken place or who might have been involved, or if somebody around here could have been involved. And just like most other people, I guess, would think. But I never did come up with any good logical reason why anybody around here would want to do anything.
Okay. Did you hear the bomb explode Christmas night at all?
No.
No.
The first I knew about it was when I come by on my way to Camp Lejeune the next morning and saw all these cars there.
Okay. Actually, not too many people actually heard the explosion that night then.
I don't see why they wouldn't hear it. You know, an explosion like that, the people within, well, I would say a mile and a half anyway,
Would have heard it.
would have heard it.
Yeah, I would have think so too. But you were in Titusville?
Yeah,
Or-
I was
yeah.
in Titusville.
Yeah, okay. So anybody
I
in,
was on Tropic Street in Titusville.
okay, so
Is the camera on?
let's talk about the Noble family and the house that they built over on Tropic Street. One of their houses is going to be used at the Heritage Park. Tell us about the Nobles.
Yeah, Sonny, we call him Sonny. His name was Elmer. He's known by the name Sonny. He was in the Navy, and he was stationed at the yacht base in Titusville. They had a small detachment of Navy personnel there. And Sonny happened to be a fisherman all his life in the Indian River, and he knew every inch of the river. So they were glad to get him to station him there. He raised pigs and saved his money and built his house on Tropic Street. It must have been in the earlier mid-40s. He built this house on Tropic Street, and now it's sitting behind Brevard Community College.
It's going to become part of Heritage Park.
Yeah.
And you helped him build that house?
I helped him, yeah. What I could. I handed them lumber and cleaned up and stuff like that, you know.
Do you remember next to that house there was a
City dump.
city dump or something, and
Yeah.
everybody used to come. Tell us about that. Everybody used to come over there and look for stuff, and he'd have to get them off their property.
That was before Sonny built his house there.
Right.
It was on the east side of Sonny's property. It was a low place. It was dropping off real low. And the city used that for a dump. That's where they dumped the garbage. And John Camel lived down the road from there a little ways, and he planted him a 5-acre grove, and he fertilized it out of that dump. He went there every day and picked up all the stuff that he thought that a orange tree would feed off of, and put it around his tree.
Huh.
And then later on, they quit using that dump, and they moved out off of Park Avenue. There's somewhere along Park Avenue there about After you pass the old golf course and club building there that belongs to the church now, past there about halfway from there to Harrison on the left, there was a dump there. I don't know exactly where it is now, but there was a dump there. There may be a house on top of it, I don't know.
How about Donnie Hutcheson, the old Hutcheson place out on the corner of Parrish and Singleton? Can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, Donnie built that. Got that at Camp Blanding. When they were dismantling Camp Blanding, they were selling these houses, and they were put up in sections, and they took it down in sections and hauled it down. He built him a house out of it. Before Donnie built his, Jimmy Walker had bought one up there and brought it back, and it's still in use out there, ma'am.
Do you remember when the old homestead that Lana Hutcheson grew up with was built? Do you remember that old house that's there, that old cracker house and the barn? I think her father Leon built them.
Yeah. That was in the late 40s. Somewhere in the late 40s.
As I understand, the Hutchesons owned all that property up there.
Yeah, my brother brought 32 acres there. All that property, most all of that property out in that area used to belong to the Warrens, the black family.
The Warrens.
Yeah. And
George Warren.
Pardon?
George and Joe Warren. I think it was George Warren and Joe Warren.
The old man's name was Joe. The old man.
Yeah.
Old man.
Yeah.
He had a cane mill there. We used to use his cane mill, and we used to grind cane and make syrup there.
Oh, so
Yeah.
Joe Warren had an old cane mill there.
Yeah.
I see. And where about was it?
On the corner of Old Dixie and Parrish.
Parrish. And there used to be a school there too that he had, I believe, back in the old days. He had built a school there.
Not that I know of.
Okay, this was a long time
There
ago.
was a school at LaGrange. There was a school there.
Yeah, at LaGrange School.
Maybe he built his own school for the blacks. I
Yeah,
don't
he
know.
did. Well, a long time ago, though. Some of the roads, most of those roads weren't paved during the early days. Do you
right.
remember when they paved 46?
It was in the 40s, in mid to late 40s.
When they actually paved it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know they put the bridges in the 30s, I think. P.W. Roberts, I think, was head of that project. He worked on the roads back then, and the Sharps work on the roads for the road department, I believe.
I don't know.
Okay.
He might have used a shovel or something like that.
Do you remember anything else about Mims that you would like to relate in the early days that's no longer there, some of the places that were there? You mentioned the golf station, that's long gone. How about some stores? How about Sharp's grocery store? That's still there.
Yeah, that's still there, and down where the drugstore is now, you know where the drugstore is now, well, just next door to there on the corner was Duff's store and post office, and that's where Mr. Roberts used to go, and he would be waiting there for the mail to come in when I walked home from school. I walked by nearly every day with his pipe in his mouth. You know. Across from there was Baggett's restaurant. He had a pretty good restaurant business there. And before, up on the corner, on the northeast corner of US 1 and 46, there was a Taylor Garage, Dunn's Garage, and that was a popular place. They done a lot of business there. Belonged to Arthur Dunn. He was a county commissioner for a long time, and he and Taylor, Truman Taylor, was the manager, and they had, the office was on front. It had glass across the front of the office, and this old fellow that lived out on Tomato Farm Road, his name was Grayton. He was the LaFeist father-in-law. He used to come into town with a horse and buggy, and Mr. LaFeist bought a car, and he showed him how to drive it. And he was coming in on 46 one day, and he was coming in on 46 one day in the car by himself, and he started doing like this, whoa, 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 and run right on across the road into that office building.
Oh my goodness. He still thought he was driving a horse.
Yeah. And there's another story. There's a Johnson man by the name of Johnson. He must have been fairly well off. He always had a car. He had a T-model, and you know T-models used to be hard to start. The starter springs stayed broke all the time. He lived there now. He had a garage. He put his car in there, and some of them was in the habit of jacking the rear wheel up on a T-model, because that would, when they'd start cranking it, you know, that would be it would spin with that wheel spinning, you know. It would keep it spinning, you know, make it start better. So he bought him one of these cars, modern cars, and he parked it in the garage. And the first thing he done, he went and jacked up the wheel on it. You know, they had good starters on them, you know. You didn't have to worry about starting them.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to tell me today? You covered about everything. What's the biggest, we just have about a minute, what's the biggest change that you have seen in this area since you arrived here?
The Kennedy Space Center, Cape Canaveral, harbor. The harbor, we used to go pick up turtles, you know, and that supplemented our diet. And we'd ride the beach all the way from north of Titusville, you know, as far as we could go up that way to below Cocoa, and there was no harbor, you know. We just rode back and forth, and find a turtle, would pick him up and come home, and that was a big thing when they dredged that harbor out over there. You see this big boat coming in there now. It's the biggest boat in the world.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
I'm surprised they got it in there.
Well, thank you very much for coming today and sharing your story about Mims and Titusville and how you grew up and about some of the local businesses, and we appreciate it very much.
Well, you're welcome.